human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. We are starting a little late. Apologies, but we are here, and that's the cool thing. I do have my special guest, T. Taylor, with me. How are you doing today, T? Let me make sure.
But I made it, so thank you for being so
Accommodating?
accommodating. That's the word I was looking for. It's been a weird day. Thank you.
Oh, no problem at all. It's like everything, we've really been having a lot of crazy things happening for so many people talking about, all this weird stuff happening and their schedules getting disrupted. And sometimes I think that's part of it, to shake us up out of the groove of whatever we're used to and comfortable with. And I don't know. It just seems that way to me sometimes anyway.
Right. And it's so funny because we were just talking last time about your flat tire, I think, incident that, like you had this issue. And so those don't know, I had a little tire issue today. It ended up being a much bigger issue than we originally thought it was going to be. So, yeah. So anyways, but it's very synchronistic. And at times, you think that's a problem. It's frustrating. If you allow yourself to get into that, which I normally would not, but today I felt a little pressure just because I was like, I'm supposed to be somewhere. But,
I know.
it all worked out.
I felt so bad because I started a BQH session that I was doing on my daughter, so I was busy with that and I wasn't checking my phone. And then like you had the tire thing happen, and you're trying to get a hold of me, and you're like stressed out because I'm not hitting you back. And I was like, I felt so bad because I'm like,
Oh no, I'm so
it
sorry.
was it was totally cool, but I know that stress you must have been under like as we moved closer to the time we were supposed to go live, and then I hadn't hit you back, and I know you're thinking I'm just gonna hop on and be ready to start the show, which did happen because I think we got done at like 2:15 and we were supposed to go on at 2:30. I'm like, wow, we really cut it close with this session or whatever. So anyway, it all worked out. I just feel bad that you had to sit there waiting for me to hit you back for so long.
No, I think
And
it's perfect. And at the time I was like, I was just worried about you. I was just like, I didn't want to mess up your stuff. But it's funny because in those couple of extra hours that I had, I ended up like reviewing some information. And then I was like, oh, that's a great, more clarified point to hit home while we talk. So I think everything happens for a reason, the way that it's supposed to.
yeah,
So
I
it's fun.
always think that too. So definitely got some information that you wouldn't have shared if that it hadn't
Right.
happened. So
I wasn't going to go there.
I want to first go to your hey Suso, what's up, man? I think you'll enjoy last night's guest because he had a real similar perspective with the Mandela effect. I didn't see in the chat, but I thought you might enjoy that. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this video you put out because, wow, I mean, let me share my screen so we can like discuss some of what we see while we.
Yeah, you got the exclusive. I haven't talked to anybody about this yet.
That's awesome. Okay, so let me flip over to here. Let me go full screen here and scooch this over a little bit. Whoops. Now, you're seeing more than they see, so you can tell I've been listening to heart and they can't
Sure.
at this point.
That's okay.
Okay, let me see here. Okay, so I'll mute it just so, while we discuss this. So this is really interesting. So you've been covering this for a while since, I don't know, last year or even the year before.
March 2017, I think, is when I came forward. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what we're looking at in this particular image is your skin, right?
Right. Just my hands on that one, I think. Yeah.
That's
With the
wild.
microscope. Yeah.
With the microscope. Now
And
that's really interesting because you're actually seeing crystals, fractals, colorful. I mean, this is so wild because I've seen some of this in the sunlight. Sometimes if you get the sun just right,
right.
you'll see these little speckles in your hand. And it was definitely something new for me. And just even in the sky, I'll see what looks like little squirmy looking sparkles everywhere.
Right.
And I like how you adjusted the light here because it really does bring out some of the contrast in these, fractals like we've been talking about.
And like when you adjust the contrast, what I've noticed with this process, one of the things I've noticed the most is that light spectrum really does play a very important part into it. And I think that dragonfly video I did talk about the new visual abilities that we're getting. It's part of releasing those filters for the veil that we've had That's part of this process, because we've been kind of entranced, or, like that movie, They Live, so to speak. So as you activate more and more of this ability within yourself, and you activate the cellular change within your visual cortex, you can start to see some of these new light spectrums. I could tell in the very beginning of my process that there was something happening under the skin, but I could only tell in the very beginning, like after I got out of the shower. This is before all the fractals and the sparklies, but I could just see like this almost language written under my skin, but it was only after like I kind of toweled off roughly. Now I can see that in these images, I can, without any contrast added, but contrast really you can see under the skin, and that's what I'm trying to show people. It's not a lotion, it's not transference. You can literally see them pushing up under the skin in these geometric patterns, and they light up in geometric patterns. You can clearly see that.
Yeah. Yeah, like this one here. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a big giant gold square that came out of my eye. So when I saw that, it's really hard because these are still images. And like I tell everybody, you really need movement to see it in the best way, because it's not fixed. It's based, like a last video I put out, and right before this, I did that frequency thing where he's changing the frequency by playing on that table, and how it changes everything. It changes the pattern. And that's what this is. This change is dependent on your frequency, and our frequencies change every second of the day. So it really does change how your body interacts with the environment around it.
You know, something I've noticed since you first, and I don't know if it's the microscope, maybe you can clarify, but it seems like there's a lot more than when you first started looking at that. Is it the microscope, or
No, I've had a big, I was going to bring that up too at some point today. Yeah, the last couple, since late December, it's accelerated really greatly for me. So I apologize to anybody who I always catch up, but it's just been really taxing on my physical body. So I've had to sleep a lot, I'd say, since it was like December 21st, I noticed a big hit, and it's just accelerated at such a grand, I don't even have words at this point.
Right. Well, like you brought up the cymatics, which you go into in the video. Jump back to that. But yeah, this here where I think most people are familiar with the way, you get these patterns in there. But that almost looks like the one that we were just looking at.
Right. It does a little bit. I see a lot of that. Yeah, exactly. That's why I use that, because I think I saw that and said, I've seen that in my skin. What?
So with these here, did you, because I was thinking, like the palm of your hand where you got that really thicker skin, and you could probably shave off a thin layer without cutting yourself. Have you tried anything like that just to I
have, actually. It's funny. Yeah, because I wasn't sure what was happening exactly under the skin completely. Like I said, I've done some filters, and I've showed you guys kind of what it looks like, but I wanted to know exactly, because what it seemed like to me was that it was like our skin was building layer upon layer, is what it felt like to me. And I wanted to know what would happen if I had cut myself, or what that looked like just from a scientific perspective. And so I had a really big cut. I think this was late last summer, and I was able to watch as it kind of knitted itself back together. And so what I saw was that those filaments, you'll see the black, red, blue, translucent, sometimes gold now, they will actually swarm this. If you get a cut, or let's say you have one of these spots on your face and you mess with it, any kind of injury that breaks the skin, it will immediately flood that area with tons of these crystals and tons of that gel-like fluid to accelerate the healing process, but it stays very much more inflamed during that whole time. So you'll notice the inflammation period lasts longer, but under the surface, you'll see a ton more fractals than you normally would, just because it's pushing all of those into that area to accelerate the healing. That's my experience, at least what I've seen.
Yeah, and some of these images, you can actually see the depth in like what you're talking about, these little fractals. Some look like they're a few layers deeper than others. And
that's my blood right there. So that's in my blood.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, my blood will crystallize now. It's pretty interesting how quickly that happens. Yeah. And now when I get a scab, it's not red like it used to be when we were kids. It's white. Wow. Yeah, it's really weird.
That's wild. That's wild stuff. So you think this is happening to everybody, right?
Well, I think it's happening to the majority of people, is what I would say. I would say that most people are inherently decent human beings, and they want to know the truth. They just want, my take was, I don't care what it is, right, wrong, or indifferent. Just give me the truth and I'll deal with what it is. That's how I approached this initially. And so I think most people are in that position. They know they've been lied to. They just want the truth. And that's what kind of kickstarts this process, is just loving people, wanting to be better, and just wanting the truth. And I think 90% of people really are in that position. Do we have some people that are, I don't want to say evil, but just not wanting to go through this process? Absolutely. So I do think that there is a subset of the population, a smaller subset, that's going to choose to exit, is what I would say, in various ways.
April asked a good question here. Are you taking any gold supplements?
Oh, I take, people who don't know me, I make something called Ormus. I know some people are sick of hearing about it, but for me, it was a game changer, I would say. I was very sick. And so I make something called Ormus, or monoatomic gold. It's a lot like colloidal silver, but on a little bit bigger level. And I have a theory that I'm going to do a video on in a little bit, that the carbon was put in place to some degree to siphon our natural monoatomic gold, because everybody makes monoatomic gold. All living stuff has it within them. And so I have a theory that the carbon was placed to kind of siphon that out or block it somehow. And so once I started taking the Ormus, and you don't need much, and I don't take it, I rarely take it. At this point, I rarely have to. But it changed the whole game. I became very healthy. It helped my third eye opening. It changed everything for me. And like I said, it just helped me balance my physical body, and I think bring those levels up to what they're supposed to be. Because normally we would get that from the environment, from the sun, from the food that we eat, just being in nature. Every living thing has that water, but we've polluted everything, or we haven't, but kind of, so badly, including ourselves, with GMOs and vaccines and medications, that we just don't get the amounts that we should. So I think it's helpful for some people. Yeah.
Okay, let me switch back now. I don't want to play the whole thing. I do have this link below for you guys, so if you guys want to check it out, please do go watch the whole thing, as well as a link to her channel as well.
Yeah, I think that I was really nervous to put that video out, because I knew when I saw those images, I had originally planned to have that video out several days earlier, and I knew when I saw them, I'd seen a lot, obviously, because I'm documenting it, but they even shocked me quite a bit. And I was like, whoa, I realized what this is it kind of takes, this is what I told my guy, because he hasn't seen it yet, it kind of takes that deniability argument off the table, because I would get that a lot. It's one of the only arguments I get pretty much anymore, is that you're just hoaxing, it's lotion. And so I thought this takes that off the table, because you can literally see it on their skin. And even if we say it's lotion, it doesn't explain like the weird almost writing that you can see within it. And it doesn't explain how they light up in geometric patterns. How would I possibly do that with lotion? That makes no sense. I mean, that doesn't. So it takes that off the table. We can all argue what it is still, but at least that's, I think, hopefully closed.
Yeah, at least we can rule out something you put on your skin, or the soap you're using, or, I mean, even environmental things. I know a lot of people would probably think, well, maybe it's the chemtrails. Because,
I get that a lot, yeah.
But,
Yeah.
But, even that would be difficult, because, it's embedded into the skin, which appears that it's coming from the inside out, or it's transforming under the skin, like Todd and I were talking about. Just part of, our DNA is actually changing. So that's pretty much how you feel. It's our DNA actually changing to suit just human evolution, basically. Like, we're changing, we're moving to a higher frequency, right?
Yeah, and that's just so funny, because one of the delays, one of the pieces of information that I wasn't originally going to talk about, is such a perfect segue in synchronicity, is from Magenta Pixie. And I highly advise anybody who hasn't seen her video about the full moon, go and check that out, because she says something that I thought was really profound. And it's like, I wrote it down, actually, so let me read it so I don't mess her words up, because they were perfect. So the Schumann frequency, we basically join through our hearts collectively, and then we join with the heartbeat of Gaia and the Schumann frequency. I had noticed a year ago-ish, I put out that video, does more gallons equal crystalline DNA? And I used that movie, The Happening, as the front clip on that. Which is a little sensational. But my point was, the frequency has changed so drastically. How can that not affect us physically? I mean, we know the moon changes women's cycles. We know that things environmentally do shift us physically. So how could we go from 7.43 or whatever it was to over 60, I've heard, at this point? That's going to affect the weather. It's going to affect everything, including us. So, and what did she say? It definitely transforms our DNA, and then through the environment and the world, we change. So we start with us, and then once we get that kicked off enough, we start to be able to affect everything around us. So like you were saying, you see those particles in the sky. Of course, it's in the environment. And so it not only does it come from us, but we can grab it from the environment. It becomes this interchange all the time. But it really does have to start from the pineal, and then it comes down. So you'll notice it starts microscopically and sporadically, very small. And then you'll see the fractals get bigger and bigger as the process continues on. So it's easier to catch it in the palms at first because it comes down that way.
And it seems, I'm looking at the Schumann right now, and it seems like we've been getting these pulses again. Very strong ones and then softer ones, but they seem to be at regular intervals. So, and I did a video about how we're so connected with the Schumann. It's like the heartbeat of the earth, and we're really connected to it in a huge way, and it totally affects our reality and how we perceive everything. I mean, we're connected to it. It's like,
exactly.
It's like we're one in that sense.
We are, and that's exactly what Magenta Pixie was saying. And it's there. We're connected to it. When we connect to each other, we connect through the heart. So we join to each other, and that's why it's like when you see somebody, and then it's like you can be having a terrible day, but you just feel that heart connection, and it kind of activates you. And we activate each other, but Gaia or Earth activates us as well, and we are connected to its heartbeat. So if it's changing, easiest, we're fleas on its back to some degree. So if it's going to go and we want to stay with it, we have to change as well, or we're not going to be able to go wherever it's going. And so it's important, to do the process. But
that's very cool. So did you have back to the Ormus? And I guess what April was sort of alluding to, is it possible that it's the supplements coming out, or were you saying that before that? I'm sure you've considered it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know me, I tore that apart. Absolutely. That's so funny. It's a good question. I get it all the time. And I did discuss that, I think, in my last Q&A video that I did. Because somebody did ask me that. And like I said, I get it all the time. For me, I noticed the process before I ever used Ormus. Ormus came in after the process had already started for me. But my physical body was really sick. And so I was led to Ormus after my doctor had said my kidneys were shutting down. He didn't know what to do with that. Like my physical body was just a mess because I had abused it for years, and I'm an empath, and I hadn't had very good boundaries. So that energy just bought into. I worked for doctors for years, so this is what it is. And of course, I think Rh negatives have different autoimmune issues for some reason that never seem. Doctors don't know what to do with. Like me and my boys, my doctor's like, that's crazy. He wants to send my kid to Children's all the time to look at genetic issues that they don't have any answers for anyway. So, what are we going for? We didn't. But, my point is that I did have this process start before the Ormus. I did start using the Ormus. And then I started to go, well, wait, just in case I'm remembering wrong, because I feel a little bit like, I know you've watched The Travelers, but I don't know if you've seen season 3 yet. So I don't want to do any spoilers, but Philip in season 3 starts to be able to see the other timelines bleed through, and it becomes very confusing for him because he can see literally different timelines at the same time. And I feel a little bit like that right now. Like I'm literally seeing glimpses of other possible timelines. So I'm like, what is happening? So I did stop taking the Ormus for 6 to 8 months, actually completely. Just to see if that was part of the thing. Because somebody had said, well, you said you had an AU rise to the surface because the letters sometimes rise to the surface of my skin too. And he said, that's gold. Maybe it's the Ormus. And I was like, very interesting thought process. But yeah, I did that like a while ago. And I don't even take it now except for when I feel like I need just a boost. So I rarely take it unless I need to at this point.
That's awesome. And you actually sell it too. So those
I
who
do.
are interested.
And I have just started, thank you. I just started the Blood Moon one on the eclipse, and that whole thing. So that one I think is probably going to be one of the most powerful ones I've ever done. And if we go with Dr. Emoto and his work, just on intention, I figure that's with whatever's happening to me, obviously, maybe that helps when I make the Ormus really give it a kick for other people. But I only make the one kind because I know people have asked me a lot. I make one kind, that's it. I don't mess around with different formulas. I have one that works, and I feel like that's good.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Right, but I have several of those batches not spoken for yet. So if you guys want some, just hit me up. I have links for ordering in the description boxes of all my videos.
Now, Nancy asked a question early on about the Ormus dissolving. Now, it's not supposed to dissolve, right?
No. This is funny. I'm so glad you said that. It's so funny to me. I'm actually working on a video, and I'm not sure what I'm going to call it because I want to use my guy's real name. He's like, I don't care if you talk about me, just don't use my name. So I'm like, all right. But it's all the funny things he has said. And that includes this exact thing. So I've been trying to get him to take my Ormus for forever, just like my parents and my kids. Now my kids finally get it. They're like, when we've gotten sick, we've taken that, even though we didn't want to for 2 years, but that stuff works, you know, I almost said a bad word. That stuff really works. So my kids got it. My parents still won't take it. Oh my gosh. But my dude finally did. And so he didn't follow my instructions, first of all. Any Ormus batch I send lots of instructions. He didn't read any of them. So he put like 2 tablespoons or something in. You need like just as much as you would salt, the tiniest amount. It's been through 3 washes, and the sediment that's left after those 3 washes is never going to dissolve completely. Sorry, everybody. That's what's left. That's how you get it.
But it's in the paperwork you send out too.
It is. It's in the paperwork, right? Okay. But he decided to, slug his coffee down and got a giant mouth of it, and then he was really mad at me. He was like, "That was disgusting." And I'm like, "You didn't follow instructions." No, but it's never going to dissolve. So that is kind of the unfortunate thing. That's why I say use it in coffee. And yeah, you don't need very much. So you should, if you're getting like a teaspoon at a time in there, it's way too much, way too much. Because mine is very concentrated. The liquid ones, you can do 1 to 2 teaspoons most times, but mine, no, that's too much.
Right, that makes sense.
And you're going to lift right off of your seat.
It's like minerals, so it's not going to dissolve completely. It's like actual, it's already been reduced down to. Exactly. That makes sense. Right. Yeah, perfect. Now, do you know anything? This might, just a little segue. I don't know if you know anything about it, because I've heard a lot of people talk about the purple stuff, C60, carbon 60. Is that, do you know anything about that?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by carbon 60. I talk a lot about carbon, so yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a supplement that's been really popular, but it's so expensive. And I'm like, it looks like little soccer balls at the molecular level.
Why would anybody take carbon?
I don't know. Maybe, maybe they're pushing that because we're trying to move into like the crystalline stuff, and they're pushing this carbon stuff. So
we're literally trying to get rid of our carbon and bypass it, and they're pushing it. That's very interesting. I didn't know anything about that. Not surprising.
It's really popular.
Not surprising.
So it might be something you want to look into, because it seems like everything's connected, you know what I mean? And it's like, why are they pushing this so hard at this time? And I've been wanting, if it wasn't so expensive, I'd probably be taking it. It's just like they say you got to get the expensive stuff. The cheap stuff doesn't do the same. And so, it's just way too expensive. So I haven't messed with it at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. My next big video that I'm going to do is it's all going to be on like the carb. I have that theory on carbon. There's a bunch of pieces I've been kind of collecting, like the X-Files talks about carbon in a few episodes. So I have this whole video I'm kind of working on. I'll include that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the idea of the monoatomic gold, because it's actually what you hear, this white powder that was, in the days of Jesus and stuff that they used for all sorts of stuff. So and I've even heard some of the stuff with like, I don't know if it was Corey Good or that Emmerich Smith guy, but he was talking about they found these chambers under the ground that had like mountains of this white monatomic gold and stuff that they were trying to secure. So it seems like the thing to have, the thing they're trying to protect.
They kept it quiet for a really long time. It's been in the background channels for a long time. It's talked about in every sacred text. It's referred to as a million different things: elixir of life, fountain of youth, philosopher's stone. I think in the Bible it's referred to as bread and manna. The Egyptians called it mother's milk. I make my formula the way the Egyptians did. I figure it worked for them. They built some pyramids, so
Right.
good. But yeah, I got really interested when I saw Bashar talking about it. After I'd been led to it synchronistically, I saw that channeler guy who does Bashar, and he said if you really wanted to fix your atmosphere, and this is right after I'd just started to kind of try to collect formulas on how to make it. So I'd already known about it, but I didn't know that much about it. And he said, if you really want to change your atmosphere, spray monoatomic gold in it, and you'll be fixed in months. Done.
So that gets back to what the Anunnaki came for, right? To fix their atmosphere.
My theory is that we got tricked into physical bodies by the Anunnaki because they were trying to harvest gold, and everybody thought it was real gold. I think it was monoatomic gold, because the only thing that makes monoatomic gold is living things. And I think the carbon thing came into play then. Yeah. That's my theory. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Well, that goes right along with the whole wing makers. When you look into, I did kind of a short summary video of the wing makers material. But when you really dive into the full thing, that's precisely what it was. They tricked, I think it was the ancient Atlanteans.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. I didn't know that, though. That's interesting. I didn't see that entire series.
Check out the Wingmaker stuff, because it's really interesting. I actually played some music on Friday night from it, but supposedly from the future, they went back like 700 years in the past, buried this time capsule with all this art and music and I think it was like 23 or 24 chambers of different things that were supposed to beat the matrix so it wouldn't be detected and suppressed. And so they were actually from like 900 years in the future or something. So
That
they went
makes
back, buried it for us to find it in these times, and it's really a cool story. I mean, if you check into it, it's and then it goes along with what you're saying though with that
It's
whole
funny
thing.
though, because I was led to them at the beginning of my awakening, and I saw some of their stuff, but I never finished it out because I want to say it was really long, right?
It
Because there were
is.
parts, right? So I think I saw the first part, but I never finished it out. So I didn't even. That's bad. I'm gonna have to go back and check that out. It's
Well,
fascinating.
what's cool that just to let everybody know is that there was 5 interviews, and the 4 were released in like around 2000, right around 2000. The 5th interview didn't come out until
Right.
2014 or 2015, so we just weren't ready for it yet. But it all gets into how this is all hologram and everything.
Right.
And since then, science has started saying that it looks like our universe is a hologram, and so we
It is.
weren't quite ready for that last information. You know what I mean? So that I can see why
Right.
they waited. It would have
Well,
just been too
even
weird.
just coming from 2017 when I came forward, I was just telling April from Fifth World this, and my guy too. It's remarkable to me because I put that video out that last on Thursday. It's the best video that I've had, except for that one off Stranger Things that got into the recommended by YouTube, and then they, I think, watched the whole thing through and were like, "Oh no, we don't want her speaking. No, wait." And so they were, there it went. But I got like 18,000 views on that one for some stream. But anyways, because people I think are ready. But back when I came forward, all the comments I got were negative, were you're on drugs, you are crazy, you're delusional, you're hoaxing. That was, or you're being chemtrailed and dying. And so now though, it was fascinating to me to see how just in such a short amount of time this has come so far, where so many people are seeing this within themselves. It's such an acceleration. And just looking at my visual pictures, I was going over them again last night. I used to have to use contrast to see that underlined, like kind of light language embedded in my skin. I don't have to do that now. And those fractals didn't used to be in place within that light language. I don't know how to explain that. If you guys look at that, you can see that those fractals aren't random where they're placed, those sparkles. They're very specific in their placement because they're adding to what's already underneath that. It's like layer upon layer upon layer. But my point is, within a year, I've gone from having to use contrast to not having to use contrast. So this is going to be visible. I can't help but think this is going to be completely visible within another year on so many people. I don't know how many, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Are we going to start shining like they do in Twilight?
I think that's the easiest part. I think people are going to be pretty shocked at how in depth and crazy it. I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting. That's going to be the easy part. I think is being in the sun and being shimmery. I think we're going to be like human light brights that actually light up holographic patterns and images. Honestly, yeah.
That's very cool. That's one of the reasons why I thought it was important to get you on, because
Yeah.
if we can sort of get out ahead of this whole
Yes.
thing, because they're going to be pumping fear about this whole thing once people start really noticing it
Right.
and going to their doctor. What the heck's wrong with me? Do I have some kind of
Right.
skin issue or what's going on? And we're starting to see stuff come out. Someone else had noticed something with their DNA having like sparkles in it that I'd spoken to. I don't know if I can,
Right.
share
Yeah,
that
I
with
heard
everybody,
it
but you know about that too, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, they did say that I could talk about and not use their name. I'd like to talk to them a little bit more before I do that, though. But yeah, there are cases that there's a DNA that is being seen by the doctors. They're calling it something specific, so it is being recognized. But I am worried that
Twinkle, I think she said.
it is twinkle. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Yeah, if I was.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
twinkle.
is the twinkle DNA. And what did they say? I actually saw the test results from this individual. They sent them to me, and what they said was they don't know what it does, but it turns on. They called it a mutation, I think, and then it turns on. They don't know why it turns on at a certain time. They don't really know what it does, but it sure seems like once they figured out that individual had that happening, they sure want a lot of their blood all of a sudden. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I do think people need to be very, I hate to say it, but very careful right now because people are getting desperate, and the medical society has known something's up for a while. Like I said, I was told by a close source of mine that there was a memo issued back in, I think it was 2015, spring of 2015 or 2016, to most medical doctors and labs saying, you're going to see an increase in patients with these symptoms. Do not treat, diagnose, examine, refer for psychiatric consultation, and then the lab said, if you run these samples that they bring in, you're going to lose your accreditation. We're going to shut you down. So,
Suppression.
But what happens is nurses and doctors, some of them go in and they're the best of the best. There are people who want to help people. So I have a lot of nurses having this happen very advanced because, you know, they're some of the most loving, empathic, and nurturing people. So I think it's going to be okay. I think the inside out will work it out. You know what I mean? And it'll be all right. But I do think people just need to be aware of that. Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing that anytime anything's outside of the norm, like,
Right.
you know, it's just automatically by default a bad thing.
Absolutely.
So this could be, you know, a good thing. Your DNA is changing, you're evolving, if you will, and you're going to go to the doctor. And if it's anything outside of the norm, they're going to want to stick you on some medication because
Right.
this isn't normal. You're not what
Right.
99% of the population is. So even if it's a good thing,
Right.
I'd say be aware. You know, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving any advice, but just be discerning about whether you start a new medication because they think something's wrong with you when
Right.
it could not be anything wrong with you at all. It could just be part of the beginning stages of what we're seeing with your images and stuff, you know?
Right. I have a lot of people writing to me right now, and especially since, so let's segue, as we're talking about, that's the perfect segue into like the full moon. I've done a little survey and asking people. So this full moon was a giant, how do I say this? I highly suggest, like I said, watch that last Magenta Pixie video that she did on the full moon, but it closed the door on some lower timelines. So you're going to start seeing, like you said, more and more people are aware and their symptoms are accelerating. So more and more people are flooding the doctor's offices at this point because they're having these very intense physical symptoms. And what did she say? I would like to give everybody a little relief. She said that the Black Saturn cube has stopped spinning. That siphoning machine, that was the inverted Merkaba, that was siphoning all of our energy. It's like the main home office got cut off from everybody. So there are still the people out there that are vibrating to the lower frequency timeline, so not great people, basically, as we know, but they can't access the home office anymore. They can't make the call and get resources dropped off. They can't do the things that they used to do. They can still mess with us, and they can still try and vampire our energy and suck at us individually, but they can't do what they were doing in the way that they were doing it before. But that's just, she said, since that full moon, that was that gateway. So I've had so many people write me just in the last week, because empathics can feel stuff like that a few days ahead, a few days after, they'll feel it coming. And so many people have been in the hospital or, you know, just such accelerated symptoms that they're just like, is this normal? Should I go to the doctor? And I always say, be safe, better be safe than sorry. Go to the doctor. At least you've had it checked out. That way, you know. But yeah, Georgie Stankoff, MD, I do a couple of his articles, and he talks explicitly about, one of them is, he says, don't go to the doctor during the LBP, the light body process. I'm not saying that. I don't want any of that on me. But he does explain that sometimes, you know, if you go on antibiotics, I had somebody say that they were put on antibiotics for a year. That's insanity. Oh my gosh. And the doctor didn't even know if that would work. It was just, I'm going to throw this at you and see if it works. But antibiotics in particular and steroids in particular will really interrupt this process and make it much more difficult for you. So if you have to take them, you do, of course. But be careful is all I would say. You know?
Okay, I did just add that Magenta Pixie full moon video to the description so people can go check that out.
Yeah, check
and
that
in the
out.
chat. So, but yeah, I watched that too. Very enlightening. And, you know, even her book, it's, I love the book.
Gosh.
She does good work. So
She saved my sanity. She really did. I know people say that to me, but she's the one who saved mine, I tell you, because nobody was talking about the physical process to that degree. So, yeah, I was like, I thought I was losing it.
Yeah.
I did.
It just seems crazy to people that don't realize, but you know, that's sort of the thing. I mean, you know, you're busy in your daily grind. You notice something, you go to the doctor. You just trust that they know what they're practicing. I mean, we know it's a practice. Right. They're just, you know what I mean. And anybody who's watched anything like Dr. House, and you see that they kind of throw this medication at it. Oh, that didn't work. Let's throw this medication at it.
My doctor Googles. He Googles stuff when I go in. He's like, oh, really? And I'm like, really? That's what I'm, oh, for God's sakes. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? And I mean, it used to be they'd have to go to their office and all their books and like, let's see what I can find in my books. But now they've got, they're probably looking on WebMD, right?
Right. I think that it's going to be really interesting this next year in particular. Like I said, I think a lot of people are going to start being more visible. And I mean, what do you do with that? So for instance, like my guy dragged me out to a casino we have close by. I'm not a casino gal. I don't really like the bars or anything. I've been to a bar in a long time. But we had to go meet one of his friends for a second. So we did. But we walked in that place and it was packed. And I don't think I've been in such a crowded wall-to-wall people environment, and not the best environment since this started, honestly. But even he said, I feel like were a beacon, and you are shining so bright. Like everybody was staring. I got so uncomfortable, we actually left. Like we actually were going to eat, but I got so uncomfortable because I was like, I just felt, did you ever see that movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves? And he's like battling. Oh my, how have you not, Shane? Oh my gosh.
Is it good?
Oh my gosh, you're going to watch it and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't know this was here. He died early on in life anyways, and so he came back, but he has this ability to see what most of us can't, is my point. So he can see the entities that a lot of us can't. And so there's this point, though, at the end of the movie where there's a lot of people that have been possessed trying to stop him from, saving the world, basically. And he walks into this room, and they all turn their head and look at him at the same time. And that's what it felt like for me when I went to the casino. It was like I was so obviously visible. And how do I say this without, I don't want to lead any bad places, but when you become activated, you are like a moth to a flame. Not only do you attract other things that are light, you attract things that are dark sometimes too. And especially right now, as these lower timelines are collapsing, they're trying to, it's like drowning, their food source has been cut off. So they're trying to literally climb on top of you and drown you out. They don't want us doing what we're doing. So just, be very aware of your surroundings and the energy of the people around you, because a lot of people are going to have a hard time with this adjustment if they're not going to do their inner work.
So do you think this Constantine movie's like a little drip of some truth? Because I'm looking here.
I do, actually.
Yeah, 2005 Constantine with Keanu Reeves. I'll have to definitely check it out. It looks good.
Yeah. It is. It's one of my faves. Yeah, I saw it a long time ago, and I was like, oh, okay, that's about right. Because it's like, it basically shows anybody who goes to the other side and survives kind of develops this ability, if they know how to use it, to be able to still see. Does that make sense? But as well as he can see, they can see him. You know what I mean? So he's a little bit brighter light that they go after, because it's, I can see you, you can see me, kind of thing.
Right. Like a moth to the flame, right?
Exactly. But I would just say, take your power back, people. It's like, it's something, take your power back. You have more power than they do.
Yeah. Like our guest last night was saying too, it's like a lot of times you don't realize that, we're all on equal footing here, but they know the power they have and we don't. So that's sort of, waking up to what the power that we do have and the power we have to change reality, and we just don't know. But they're using it against us all the time when they're pumping fear through the media, right, and they're getting us to worry about things. Then they're taking our power and using it for their agenda.
Exactly. It's like, I explain it like, it's like they live, they had the glasses the whole time, we are literally having to adapt our visual cortexes to be able to get those glasses, because they weren't going to give them to us. So we were like, we'll just override you. You know what I mean? Like, forget it. We'll go around you. So now, we're starting to see. And as you look around and you're like, I see why things are worded this way. I see why this movie was this way. It's all there. It's been hitting us this whole time. And like you said, we didn't know. We were just like, we got programmed, and we're like, all right.
Yeah.
Somebody described it very interesting last night. And they said we were put in a trance. We were hypnotized. And so we really have to break out of that, being hypnotized in that trance-like state, because it's subliminals, like that guy, like we were saying with that pattern with the table, like you were saying earlier. So it's like when you're getting these frequencies pumped at you, we didn't know they affected us to that degree, but you can literally see how they affect everything. That affects us for sure. So, once you change that, and once you become aware of that, it changes your DNA and you start the activation process. It was really just waking up. That's all you have to do. That's it. Yeah. And then it starts.
And there's so many things to wake us up, whether it's like 9/11 or the Mandela effect, or just so many different things that it seems like we've got these little hints thrown at us all the time. And if we'll just hop on board and, be the truth seeker for a while, and, it's like never ending, it's not like you can't ever sort of get to the bottom of the rabbit hole. I guess, that's why they refer to it.
Yeah, that rabbit hole goes on and on and on, right? And
it just leads to more.
A bunch of other ones.
Exactly.
Right.
But What the Bleep Do We Know was probably one of the first movies I saw, like way back in the day. And that was when I first came across Dr. Emoto's work with the water crystals. And, it's hard to believe that when you watch it. You're like, how could that possibly, just putting love into the water, or blessing the water, or putting on music that irritates you, and then it looks all chaotic and all that. It's just hard to really believe that until you can do things like the rice experiment at home on your own and see the power of your intention on things like that. And that's like within your own house, a simple thing you can do. but it's still just hard to wrap your head around the fact that just your intention can change so much. But that's been used against us so much, you know?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, if you want to bring somebody in and they're really cynical and they're really not ready or awake, quote, that's the first thing I start with is Dr. Emoto's work. You know what I mean? Because like I said, like you just said, you can do that in your own home. Like you can do that experiment yourself. Nobody else is there to interfere with you. You can literally watch it as it happens. And like I tell people, that's the first thing that I saw that conclusively proved that our thoughts and words change physical elements. That was the best thing I had ever seen. And so people have a hard time with that because we are programmed. And so people look at that and they're like, they're going to have one of two reactions. They're going to either be triggered completely and freak out because they're just not ready, but it's planted at least. They saw it, can't unsee. Or it's going to open, it's going to open their mind and they're going to dig deeper, which is what happened to me. I was like, oh, wow, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and it's good for like the person that's not very spiritual or metaphysical. Yeah. If they're just straight up scientific, that's the perfect thing to show them because, like, what are they going to do with that? I mean, they can do it over and over again if they're like, well, maybe the pan was dirty or maybe that container was dirty. They can repeat it over and over until they convince themselves to go back to the right brain, because if you're too left brain, too analytical, you won't come up with an answer for that. That's how it is with the Mandela effect. You can't stay in the left brain and come to any kind of conclusion. You have to go back to your right brain. That's why I feel like for me, it pushed me back to my right brain to think outside the box. When you're in the right brain, you're outside the box. You're in the heart space, that creative part of us. And I feel like a lot of the Mandela effect changes, that was the actual message in them, was that, we've gone wrong as a society by moving to the left because analytical, that's ego, that's all about me. And, that's the selfish service to self opposed to service to others. So it's all connected, isn't it?
Right. Science is a new religion. You're exactly right. And that was the message I got today, too. We had that delay over and over again to talk about is part of how you can see that is by connecting with your heart. You have to go through the heart space. You have to go through that other side that we're being trained not to use that side. That's why they did the fluoride. So it separates the separate hemispheres. You can't interact. That's why it's so important to not have fluoride in your diet. Let your pineal be the way that it's supposed to be. And then you'll start to notice that, you just can see more, but you have to go through the heart space. It's really important because otherwise you won't see. You won't. If you're going to constantly be trying to look for rational explanations to everything and scientific explanations for everything. I mean, some of this stuff we just don't understand yet. We don't, So,
well, what are some of the benefits? I know you've talked about this before, but of Ormus, and does that help with the pineal gland? And can you go through some of the benefits of taking Ormus?
Yeah, I've been using mine publicly since July, and I've had a lot of people get it, and I've been kind of taking data. Let me put it that way. So far, I've had people say to me they've been able to get off anxiety meds, anti-reflux meds, that they have a better spiritual connection, that during these waves of very large, intense energy, that they would get very anxiety-ridden and be triggered very easily, and that just has balanced them in a way that they hadn't previously experienced. And it's helped them open up that third eye so much more, just better clarification, understanding. It really does help. Just my take is it helps balance the energetic and physical bodies. And that's what most people don't understand, is that our energetic body has everything to do with our physical body. It really does. So when those are kind of mismatched, it's a real problem. So it definitely helps open up your awareness. And a lot of people actually use that for that only. They're not they don't care about the physical part of it. They just want that spiritual component to it. So I would just say, though, just be very, start slow and then see how your body reacts. Of course, everybody's different. But I've had one of my people tell me that he was just getting ready to have a liver biopsy. He had a 98 alt on his liver test. And after 2 months of taking my Ormus, he was back at normal ranges within 20 to 30s.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. That blew me away. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed any changes with like your meditation time or your dream time? Anything like that? Does it?
It got a lot easier for me to. My brain is always very active. Obviously, I always feel like I have 8,000 conversations going on at the same time.
Yeah,
and so when I would try to meditate in the beginning, it was like I couldn't close it all off, because you hear empty your mind, right? And it's like I can't empty my mind. You got laundry and this and that, got all this stuff going on, right? But it did help me be able to do that in a way I hadn't previously been able to do. Yeah, that's for sure. It definitely lengthened but I was also working on that on my own. So I don't know how much is the chicken before the egg kind of thing, or chicken or the egg, right? So I think it helped tremendously. And from the people I've talked to, they all seem to think that it's been really tremendous in helping them too, right? I'm just glad I'm glad that it's being talked about, because when I first started looking into it, was only a few people were distributing it, and it was incredibly expensive. And it was like, one place wanted a family plan of like $500 a month. And I was like, whoa, that's effing crazy.
Wow.
I mean, anybody can make it. Really, anybody can. It took me a year to get my formula right, but there are videos on YouTube that show you how to make it. Just watch the pH is my advice. But my point is that it's like, now a lot of people are talking about it, and I think it really helps. Yeah, I think it really helps, especially with this process, because a lot of the complaints that I get from people right now, as this physical acceleration is hitting a lot of people with this DNA activation, it's flushing anything from your system that really shouldn't be in there right now. So a lot of us are older. We've had vaccines, we've had GMOs, we've had crap we've been exposed to. And so they're very sick during this purging process. And so it really just kind of gets you a kickstart just to kind of just balance it. You know what I mean? That's, I think, the best thing for it. And I know a lot of people right now are really struggling. Yeah. So
you use that as like more of a Kickstarter, and then you don't really have to take it much anymore then.
No, I don't take it almost at all at this point, like once a week. And if somebody around me is sick with a cold, I think I go back to that. I try not to go back to that fear response of, I don't want that, you know what I mean? But I don't want that still. Since I started taking it, my health has completely turned around. Yeah, I've gotten off all my medications. I don't have lifelong allergies anymore. I used to be deathly allergic to everything, to the point I even being able to take shots because I was that allergic. But yeah, like my lupus is gone. I haven't had cold or flu since 3 years now. So yeah. So wow. Like my son's friends was sick though. And I was like, oh, I'm going to take some Ormus. Like, I'm going to get a Kickstarter on that. You know,
stay out ahead of the sickness.
Right. Yeah. So I do it then, or if I just feel, like depleted or something, I do. But yeah, I didn't ever want to become dependent on anything either. That's the thing. I didn't want to give my power to something like that. So yeah, in the beginning I used it just kind of balance my body. And then I turned around, I think it was summertime. I'd used it for about 3 months, and I turned around and went, oh my God, because my guy had said to me, it's the first summer that we've been together, I haven't heard you complain about your knees. And I went, oh. And it's like breathing. You forget, like you can, it's so easy. When you have a cold, it's like, oh my gosh, I just want to breathe again. I'll never take this for granted again. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like that. All of a sudden I turned around and went, I'm not sick for the first time in my adult life, or my life period. I'm not sick. Holy crap. Like, and then I'm just like, I can't believe it. Yeah.
April's wondering if it has any effect on the good bacteria in the body.
I think it takes care of all that stuff. I really do. I think it really balances bacteria, fungal issues, everything. I really think it just helps your body work in the perfection that it will naturally. But like I said, we just have such depleted amounts. And we all have monoatomic gold within us. I mean, we make it. But I just think, we had such depleted amounts that we just weren't able to get the amounts we needed. But I think it is a natural anti-inflammatory is a big one. I have a lot of people talk about how their joints are not as inflamed, that have arthritis. So yeah, joint pain. I think it takes care of all those issues. Yeah.
What about ascension symptoms, or what people call ascension symptoms? Do you think it helps with that too? Just the headaches and just.
That's what I've been told from the people that have taken mine. Yeah. And that's the only data I can give you, because I haven't recently been doing a lot of research in other distributors, but from the feedback I've gotten, that's what everybody said. They're like, oh my gosh, I can get through the day. Yeah.
That's weird, because let me ask you what your feelings were the other night during the lunar eclipse, because for me, it was like, I was really gung-ho going into it. I was really excited going into it. And then once we were in totality or whatever, I got sort of this troubled feeling for no reason, right? And then as soon as the sun started peeking out, I got a headache, and the troubled feeling went away. So I want to just kind of get everybody's, so I don't know. That's just, was it in my head, or I wasn't really thinking about it?
I don't think so. I think for me, that night was great. We had we had probably one of the best nights we've ever even had at my house that night. Like, my guy was there, and his son was here, and my son, and we were all having this big family dinner. And my son got this like really expensive camera from my parents. Here's synchronicity for you. He got this very expensive camera from my parents a couple years back at Christmas. Out of the blue, like right before Christmas, never asked for a camera before in his life. He's like, I want this camera. And it was like, A, that's outrageously expensive. And B, what? When did you develop a camera, habit? But my point is, it all comes back around. And so That day I had said to him, he has not let me touch it, by the way. It's a digital camera. And I'm like, do you understand the pictures I could take with that in my process? And he's like, you're not touching it. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But that day I'd said to him, hey, why don't you get your camera out and take some pictures of the moon tonight? That would be really great, And then he said to me, hey, by the way, you can use my camera if you want. And I went, oh, I shifted to a better timeline. Oh my God, But my point is, he took some amazing pictures that night, and that night was great. I had this great bliss-filled feeling. I didn't feel sick. I just felt energized and charged. And then the next day, I went, oh, what happened? Like, what happened? Like, it just felt, yesterday felt really off, and then today's felt kind of off. I think after re-listening to Magenta today, I think I just don't think I was aware that maybe that system had changed the way that it had. It's kind of like leveling up, but I think the way she worded is that we're more in 4D now. And so 4D, we have to be very careful with manifestation, because it's much more quick. And so I'm used to manifesting a lot of crap, apparently. So I have to get out of my own head a little bit more, I think, and that would help right now. But yeah, I've had a really weird feeling for the last 2 days. Really drained of energy today. Yeah.
That's interesting. To go back to when we were talking about the good and the bad bacteria, I just wanted to add it that April had mentioned that colloidal silver can wipe out both good and bad bacteria. I didn't know that. But she says silver shield does not harm the good bacteria. So whatever that means.
Yeah, she's pretty good with that stuff. And I would also recommend zeolites is a supplement that I was led to. I just had somebody write me. And that's the other thing. I mean, so many people will write me. If I don't get back to you right away, please, it's not you. I'm trying. Just, I'm dealing with my own process too. So please forgive me. But yeah.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's so hard. It's so hard. And a lot of people write me about, I just feel really toxic and I want to help this process. How do I help this process? Do you have any ideas for supplements? And I said, here's what I did. Like you were saying, we have to get back in touch with that heart side. We really need to start listening to our intuition. And every time we do, and it's a positive, we retrain ourselves to start listening to that more and more, because we were completely trained not to listen to our intuition. Like the kids coming out now, I mean, they're trying to beat it out of them almost, right? So it's like, oh boy. But I went to the health food store and I just stood there in front of all the supplements. And I knew a lot about supplements with my son and what we went through, but I just held out my hands and closed my eyes and grabbed. I just felt and grabbed. And I happened to grab zeolites and spirulina. And I'd never even heard of zeolites. I looked at the back and I'm like, volcanic clay? Like, oh boy, I don't know. I don't even know what's going on there. But when I looked it up, and what it did, it helps take free radicals out of your body, but it keeps them chained up so that they won't hurt you on the way out in a very easy way versus something like heavy metal detox or something else. And so I was like, wow, okay. And it fights bacteria and all that other stuff. And so I took that and spirulina and it helped me tremendously. But, and coconut oil I was led to too. I tell people, trust yourself, because everybody's biochemistry is different and your body is really going to tell you what it needs, just like eating. A lot of people right now are pushing that envelope and they're regretting it. I get a lot of those emails too. They're like, I knew I shouldn't have eaten that, but I did. And will that get better? And I'm like, no, it's going to get worse. Actually, it's going to be like claustrophobia. Those walls are going to get tighter and it's going to make it more and more and more uncomfortable for you until it's kind of like conditioning, it's until you decide you're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah,
so
I think it's a good thing though, because it's like so many of us have such a tough time changing up our diet or something, that when our body starts rejecting something that we love, that we probably shouldn't be eating, that helps, because you don't want the bad that's coming with what's pleasurable to you about eating chocolate or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And maybe you're eating too much of it, because too much of anything isn't good, but your body starts rejecting. You're like, oh, I used to be able to eat this and now I can't eat this anymore. And I would say listen to your body, because that's the help you need. Think of how much easier it is when you know that there's a downside to doing something. It's just easier not to do it,
Right. If you're going to order that giant steak and that you always did it. I was always a steak gal, loved it. But if you start to realize that once you order that, you're in the bathroom about a half an hour after that with some really bad issues, and that kind of stays with you in a gassy way or something the rest of the night, it really does kind of put a damper on things. So it really does make you go, I don't really want to do that again. So it is. And it's not only doing that with food, but it's doing that with medications, supplements, drugs for people. It's just going to kind of keep squeezing that until you just are like, it's so uncomfortable, I don't want to do that again. And
Yeah.
it's actually the nicest way to do that, I guess, for someone, instead of just making them, go full turkey. We have lots of habits and programming we have to kind of override. Another thing I'd say about food, though, is food is density. It's a density issue as well. So some foods are much more dense. And as we get to these higher frequencies, it's just harder and harder to metabolize those and break those down in the body. So I used to love milk. I can't almost drink milk at this point, or have animal products. I mean, I still eat some meat, but it's not like it was. And my portions are so much smaller than it was as well. I don't need as much food as I used to, because I'm now starting to use light as a food source versus food to some degree. So that will be more and more for people, I think, too.
Yeah, and really, like we were talking about with the water and the rice experiment, using your power of intention over your food and your water and everything you put in your body is tremendously helpful. Because, I mean, if you are still eating meat products from time to time, which I'm moving to a plant-based diet myself, but, I know what it's like, because, it hasn't been that long for me, but I know that just thanking your food can make a huge difference. It sounds silly, but it really isn't. I mean, it's scientific,
Right. I started that it's so funny that you say that, because I started that intuitively, and it's so cool to see how many people are, and so many of us did. That's my point. So many of us started just doing things. Like my boys, I want to say it was like 2016. I remember my son just kind of gave up pop, and he was a pop guy, and he used to get migraines all the time, so caffeine would help him. But he's just like it, and I would listen to what they're saying, even though they didn't seem like they're awake, and of course they're resistant because I'm their mom. Out of 8 billion people, they got me. But you know what I mean? Sorry, guys. But it was just like little things, like it just doesn't taste right anymore. It's too chemical. I don't want the chemicals. And I'm like, okay, because that wasn't, but it was such a switch over. So it's like people are just naturally starting to do this on their own. But it's nice to see the validation come in, later, because I had just started kind of, when I would eat meat or something that was GMO that I knew I probably shouldn't, I would, like you said, say a little prayer, a little hopo ono, you know what I mean? Please forgive them. They didn't know. Please, whatever. Mm-hmm. Before I ate it. And it just was better. It just it tasted better. Same thing with water. Like I said, we do that. In fact, I have crystals. We have a water thing. I have crystals all on the top. Yeah. Just to give it that kick.
Isn't it kind of funny how, like, I mean, I find myself craving like water over soda pop, like I used to. But like, even like vegetables, I'll smell vegetables and my mouth will water. I was never a vegetable guy. So this is like really weird for me to experience smelling vegetables. And, it's like the first thing I eat on my plate and stuff like that. And
somebody's like, who are you?
Right.
I know, I wanted a salad like a while ago, and my guy's like, oh my God. Like, because I was like, not a fruit, not a vegetable gal. Like if it did come out of a box, but now it's like, I used to get fast food for my kids all the time. I can't tell you. I think we actually got McDonald's once, like, I don't know, within the last month, but we all said that's the last time. We'll never, and that's the first time we've had it forever. And we all said that's the last time. We can't do it anymore. And it's funny because I think I just heard on a news story, a lot of fast food chains, it's the first time they're seeing these giant dips in profits, because people are waking up. And so, like, even I used to use instant mashed potatoes all the time. It's been 3 years probably since I've done that. It just is. And when you put that love into it while you're cooking, you know what I mean? Like, we always put the music on, have a good time, and everybody gets, it changes the dynamic. Yeah. So
yeah,
I would say, can't
You
hurt.
know, and it's a snowball effect too, because if you eat something bad, then you find that you're not craving the water anymore. Now you want the soda, and it's like,
Right, it is.
You're attracted to the bad stuff if you even open that door a little bit. So I find it's easier just not to give in to begin with and stick to doing the right thing, because it can snowball into 3 days of eating crappy food.
It will go downhill so fast. Yeah, and then before you know it, you got a flat tire, and just kidding. Like, you got all these snowball so bad you broke your favorite bug. Right. I was going to say too. Did you hear the Mandela effect of that? We used to be 75% water, 70% water, and now we're 50. Did you hear that?
No.
Yeah, that somebody just brought to my attention the other day, and
That's
I had
right.
on water. Had so many people telling me that they're so thirsty right now. They're so thirsty. And I get it. I think that as we go through this process, I was told so many times, drink enough water. And my dad used to say that. So I think I instantly Charlie Browned it and just was like, wah, 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 because I wasn't a big water drinker. But you do get extra thirsty, because I think you need more water to go through this transformation, and water helps. Like, if we talk about Dr. Emoto too, I mean, look at the effect water can actually have. And when we're talking about frequencies, so drink lots of water, everybody, is my best advice. Yeah. And I think some of the headaches people are getting are actually due to dehydration. They don't even realize it. because it does, yeah, we're getting dehydrated a lot easier. It's true.
Mm-hmm. Not getting proper magnesium levels is another huge one for people
Yeah.
that get heart palpitations. I didn't know that because I was on pharmaceuticals for a long time, and somebody said, just try to not take the heart palpitation medication and to try magnesium instead. And I was like, I don't know, but it worked, you know?
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a really good point. Somebody brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, magnesium's a big one.
So the information's out there. We just need people like us to disseminate it and get it out to the people. And you know, that's why we're here. So wonderful.
Right. I think a lot of people too, it's this giant wave has come in. And I think, you know, even if people before seemed not conscious of it, those people are, it's harder and harder to stay in denial at this point. And like I said, some of us, if this, even just by my documentation of my specific case, some of us are going to be very visible in a way that is not going to be hideable, that is going to be undeniably freaky to some, I guess you could say. I mean, like I said, within a year, I mean, if it keeps at the pace that it is, there's no way. So I think even those people are starting to really look around and go, oh, this is not what it's, you know, it's different. So just being supportive.
CISO saying that he remembers it being 80% water. It's the GPK. But I remember specifically it being 2/3. Them saying that you're 2/3 water, and I'm thinking, I remember thinking it was like the Earth, like, you know, wow, we're the same parts water as the Earth, and I thought that was kind of a weird synchronicity, you know. But back to what we were saying though, even within other people, when we love other people, it's like loving that jar of rice, right? So it's like you're putting good stuff into it. So how many of us are in like a bad relationship and we're not happy with maybe our significant other, and we're laying there at night thinking, God, you know,
right?
You know, instead of even if things aren't working out good in your relationship, you should still send that person love, because the net, I guess, you know, result is going to be better whether, you know, you feel like they're the right person for you or not. You're still, you know, making their rice good.
That's a beautiful thing. I'm really glad you touched on that, because that's so huge right now. Because really, so many people are having a struggle with this. And here's the thing about bad relationships: they're not going to last much longer. You know, people are just, it's like that claustrophobia. The walls are closing in. Anything that's a really bad frequency, you're just not going to be, you're going to be pushed more uncomfortably and more uncomfortably to just get out of that. And if you stay in those situations, I have a friend of mine who is in a bad relationship, bad marriage, and has been for many years. He's very ill, like really ill. And like I said to him, do you want to live? Because he's got a very significant diagnosis. And he said, I just don't know. And I said, well, here's the thing. The universe is handing you a ticket out if you want it. But you have to make the decision. You know, you have to decide that you want to live. And if you're so miserable that you don't want to, and you're not willing to make any changes, then, you know, the universe is saying, here, then you can exit. That's fine. I said, but you have to realize that you can't stay in this negative energy, because it is literally physically affecting you. That's part of why you are so sick. It's this. I could not go to bed next to somebody who just didn't want me there. Like, that's just not going to work for me. You know what I mean? That's just not who I am. But that's going to get harder and harder for people, because we're just going to be craving that love. Yeah. You know, and that's just that interaction with somebody who supports you and lifts you up. And that's how we rise too. Yeah.
Yeah. But then just, even if you don't feel like they're maybe the person for you, it's still that, you know, they're still a person. So
absolutely,
you know, sending them that love is better all the way around, whether, you know,
and maybe help them awaken. If sometimes people, how did I just say this to my guy this weekend? It's so funny. I said, you're so lucky I came along, because you were in like a completely black room with no windows, and then I busted through the door and it was like light. Oh, you know what I mean? But sometimes people just need to know that there is light outside, because they built these prisons around themselves, and they've accepted that they're never going to be loved, that this is going to be the way it is forever, and they don't deserve better, and they've fallen into this bullshit crap programming, you know. And it's like, it's sometimes if we just crack that window for them a little bit, it's like they can fly free. You know, they just needed somebody to show them that there was an exit to that, or that there was a different way. So even if we don't stay with them, I mean, just, give them the courtesy of, I always say, even if a relationship doesn't work out, there's something about you in the beginning that I thought was so special to even enter that idea of being in a relationship with you. So, you know, very rarely do things work out romantically forever anyways. That's a 1 in a million shot. So, you know, I'm just happy to have made a new friend, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good point because, you can still be friends. And a lot of us kind of get locked into that thinking, well, to send them love or to do that is sort of accepting the relationship. And they're really two separate issues.
Very separate issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
So you can
separate.
still send them love, but realize that maybe they're not the person for you, you
Right.
know?
I'm still
And
friends with pretty much almost every one of my ex-boyfriends. Yeah. Except for my ex-husband. He doesn't really like me very much, but I tried to be his friend. He just doesn't like me because I took his money. You have 2 children. I'm sorry. If I won the lottery, I wouldn't care. So
right.
send him lots of love is my point. Lots of love.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I do have your links below to the video we showed that people need to go check out the whole thing and your channel. Is that the best way to get a hold of you, is just through your channel, you think?
And in the description box on pretty much almost every one of my videos, my email is at the bottom and all the links that to get a hold of me. There's my Facebook and everything in there.
Perfect. So if they want to get a hold of the Ormus or look more into that, they can just go to one of the videos and check it out.
But I would say everybody just check out your own process, like I said, and don't hold yourself up to me or somebody else, because everybody's going through this at a very unique pace for them. So, and it's all so individualized. But yeah, check your own stuff out. You know what I mean? Like, everybody can do what I do. I don't have any special equipment. Well, now I have a $20 microscope. It's $20, guys. It's not fancy, but everybody can do what I do. I tell everybody how I do it on my videos. So yeah, check your own stuff out, because then once you see it on you and it's real, then I get the, oh no, now I have 1,000 question emails, like, oh no, I didn't, I thought it was you. And that was one thing, but now I know everything, because it's me. Like, all right.
Well, I'd like to have you back more regularly anyway, so maybe we can address some of those common questions that come up a lot, because, you find that that's what happens. A lot of people will have the same things, and you're like, well, maybe I should just put out a video. And then I can link them to the video, the future people, and say, oh, I've already covered this, so.
Right, I love that. I do that a lot.
I've done so many videos, I can hardly find mine at this point. It's like, oh, gosh, how can I go find that one?
You do a lot. Yeah, that's true. You do more than me. But you're the facilitator. That's part of your mission, is you facilitate all these wonderful connections with people. And that's the other thing I tell people, too. If you can build a support network, that's the most important thing right now, because you will get triggered. There's nobody, I don't care how enlightened you are or whatever, you're going to get triggered at some point. You know what I mean? And so it's like you said, it's that snowball effect. So if we can have these networks of support, when we get into those moments, like Fifth World, I called her freaking out today. I was like, but they can pull you out a little bit and like throw you that life preserver. And so just, your channel is so great with that. Yeah. So just find your support networks, people.
Perfect. Well, lots of love to you. I really appreciate you coming on, T. Taylor.
Thanks for having me.
Lots of love to everybody in the chat, and definitely check out our links, and we will be back. Let's see. I will be back tomorrow with Angie. She's going to talk about her QHHT session tomorrow evening with Allison Coe. So.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. So until next time, have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye. If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.